Welcome back to Podcast 129. This is episode number 4. Is it 4? Yes.
4. Yep.
This is the Big Ten preview live from the Peach State. I am Hunter Waldrop, and that is Jake Stinchcomb. Jake, how we doing today, brother?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Getting the juices flowing early this morning. That's for
yeah, really.
Today we're just going to discuss the Big Ten, how we think that conference is going to play out. This is the last of the conference previews. And then
thank God.
Thursday, I know. And then Thursday we got the playoff and week 1 preview. And then we got ball coming up in just a few short days, dude. So
we're so close.
I'm excited about all that. Let's hop right into it. Let's waste no time. And do you have a 1st and 10 today?
I do have a 1st and 10.
Oh, gosh.
So I know we this is a college football podcast so far, but I know throughout as we keep diving into more episodes, we're going to throw in some football. Some NFL, baseball, maybe a little bit of basketball. And we're Georgia fans, but this is also an Atlanta Braves podcast. And I don't know if you saw last night, Hunter, but the Bats were alive last night for the Atlanta Braves in Minnesota. 10 runs. We never score 10. It was what were you saying?
I did get a notification saying that it was delayed in the 2nd inning and the score was 9-2.
Oh yeah, the Bats were hot last night. So I got tired of trying to find conference specific trivia, just because it's hard to find. And we're a Braves podcast. We're going to do some Braves trivia today.
Right.
So Hunter, with that being said, I need you to give me the top 5 home run leaders in Braves history.
Oh gosh, my brain's not functioning like that. I was totally prepared to talk about the 2004 Michigan Wolverine football team. But anyways, Hank Aaron, obviously, number 1.
Yep.
Dale Murphy up there.
He is number 4.
Okay. Chipper Jones.
Number 3.
Andrew Jones.
Number 5. Only missing number 2.
And then number 2. Oh, goodness. Oh,
great name. Great name. Great name. He played in the, I want to say 60s.
In the 60s.
Yeah,
obviously, his numbers retired.
I believe so. Let me check when he played. I'm pretty sure.
Is he known to be a Brave is the question.
Yes.
In the 60s.
He played from 1952 to 1968.
Dude, I'm going to be pissed if I can't think of it. Let's see.
Played third base.
Eddie
Matthews.
There you go.
Nice job. Good. Who's number 6? You know who number 6 is? Yes.
No.
It's pretty easy.
Is it current? Recent?
Recent.
Like
he's still playing, but he's not on the Braves. That should give it away.
Oh, Freeman.
Yeah.
Freddie. Yep. Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah. That was good.
Not complaining for getting stuck on a guy that played in the 50s.
Yeah, really. So, but yeah, we're Braves podcast. Hopefully the Braves get going. I'm excited to cover some baseball once we get to that point, once football season gets going. So
I'm shocked they're only 5 games back. Just going to be completely honest.
Yeah, the Phillies they've been dead since the All-Star break, man. The Mets, they're the hottest team in the division. The division playing out. It's going to be interesting. I think we play the Phillies in a 4-game set this weekend, so that's really big.
Yeah. I can't wait to talk some postseason baseball come October. See how many numbers that pulls. But
yeah.
All righty. Well, it is time to hop and talk some Big Ten football. But first, Jake, I'm going to let you do some advertising, brother.
All right. As always, go follow us on X and Instagram. We're trying to post as much as we can around both of mine and Hunter's school schedules. On Saturdays, we will definitely be very active on X, posting like crazy. So go give us a follow, be active, comment, let us know what your thoughts are on the pod so far. Give us some stuff to talk about. Share our posts, and on YouTube, go like, comment, subscribe in all of our videos. And we appreciate all of the action you guys are giving us, and we look forward to seeing where this thing can take us. So, yeah, let's dive right into the Big Ten.
Let's do it. And for those not watching on YouTube, the handle is at podcast_129. I got some shade thrown at me because they're like, oh, well, you keep talking about your slides, but we can't see them. We're listening on podcast. So for podcast listeners, if you're trying to follow us on social media, is at podcast_129 at both Instagram and X. All right. Today we are discussing a interesting conference. This is it the biggest conference of all the Power Fours? 18 teams? I believe so.
Yeah, I believe so.
But I will say I don't think I really realized how many teams got added to the Big 12. Because, I mean, you have Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State all there. If I'm missing anybody else, I'm not sure. But I think they might be at 18 teams as well. It's crazy that they're called the Big 10. And yet 18 teams represent. You obviously adding Pac-12 champion Washington, national runner-up Washington, Pac-12 runner-up Oregon, who's consistently been in the mix of it. And then you're adding USC, who brings a lot of homage and history behind their program. And now that they got Lincoln Riley back, they kind of got back up to that trajectory before, shout out to Clay Helton, my head coach down here at Georgia Southern, for getting fired. And shout out to USC for still paying them, so we don't have to. And then you got UCLA, who has been in the toilets, no NIL money going towards that program. And we'll talk more kind of about the UCLA situation when we get to Ohio State and Chip Kelly. Yeah. So first up, we'll talk surprise teams. Jake, I know you are very interested and want to talk about Dylan Raiola and the Huskers. So if you want to take it away, go ahead.
I am. I'm very excited about this team. I'm a Matt Rhule guy. I really like him a lot and how he can develop. And last year, I mean, they made a step up, and I think this year's another step up. Their win total sitting at 7.5. I'm just excited that we have some excitement around Nebraska. I mean, I think college football is better when this program is just in the mix, right? And in the Big Ten, I think they're really going to be able to compete, especially on the front half of the schedule. It looks pretty favorable. And then the back half is really where we're going to see what this team's made of. I appreciate they're going in on Dylan Raiola. I love that. If you're going to invest in somebody that with a not a younger coach, but a younger coach in the program, Matt Rhule, he found his guy. He's going all in. He's not letting the upperclassmen, if there is one, start. He's going all in with Raiola day one, and I really appreciate that. Throw him into the fire earlier. I think Brandon Walker was talking about this on Unnecessary Roughness. Throw him into the fire. Let him make mistakes, and especially with this schedule, the first 7 weeks, you don't have any games where you're going to – I mean, they should be able to control the first 7 weeks of the schedule. In the back half, by that point, Raiola, he'll have his experience, the little that he'll have, and then we'll see what he's made of on the back half of the schedule. And they brought in Jamal Banks from Wake Forest and Isaiah Nayer from Texas. Both of these guys are transfers because I think they lost all their receivers. He just needs to complete passes, man. Just show the fans that your offense can score points, your quarterback can throw, put up some yards. And then they got Gabe Ervin at running back, and then Oregon transfer Dante Dowdle. So I think their offensive line's always pretty solid. So if they can protect Raiola, just let him throw the ball 17 to 20 times a game. Complete some passes, throw some touch, just game manage. We want to see Nebraska's offense score and be able to compete. Defensively, I think their defense, everybody's talking about Raiola, but I think the defense is what's going to keep them in games. They're bringing back 9 of 13 starters that played at least 300 snaps last year, which is great. Everybody knows by this point I'm a big experienced guy. The front seven, they're a big, solid group with some severe NFL talent on the defensive line. I was reading about them. The secondary, they're a tad experienced after a few guys getting banged up early last season. So they're older guys, but their secondary was really banged up last year. And I think the good thing about that, the younger secondary, Raiola, and getting the skill guys going is going to be the first, like I've said like 3 times already, the front half of the schedule. I will go through it with you. So week 1, you got UTEP, Colorado, week 2 at home. I think you should take care of them. Northern Iowa and Illinois back-to-back at home. So your first 4 games are at home. I think you go win all those. At Purdue's your first road test. I think you win that. Rutgers at Indiana. So those first 7 weeks of the schedule, I like them to start out 7-0. I just think they're going to be able to handle that. Like I said, if you can score 20 points in the first 7 games, I think your defense is going to keep you in every single game. And then the back 5 is what's really where we're going to see what this team's made of. How good are they? So you got at Ohio State. I got you dropping that one. That might be ugly on Dylan Raiola's first major Big Ten road test. And then you got UCLA at home, and then you go to USC. I think they bully USC. I'll get into USC in a little bit on what I think about them. And then Wisconsin at home, I think you dropped that one. And then Iowa the last week of the season on the road, I think you dropped that one. Iowa's defense is crazy. That game will probably end up being like 6-3 final score. So I got them sitting at 9-3. They're my surprise team because I think Matt Rule is a coach that develops his boys, and he's going to get them better each and every year. And I think in maybe 2 or 3 years, Dylan Raiola is going to be a legit quarterback in this conference for the future NFL football. So that is why they are my surprise.
I really like that. A surprise team, I don't know. I think more of a wild card, just in my opinion, because let's just say it doesn't work for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like you can see his talent, you can see the arm slots, all that. You're like, oh my gosh, like this kid's got it. Then you also look at it and you're like, 4 high schools in 4 years. A little suspicious. What's going on there?
Yeah, that is true.
I've heard some rumors about the committing to Georgia and then going to Nebraska, but that is not made for this podcast. But I think the run game is going to be good. You know, they got those corn-fed boys up front blocking. I think they're going to be good in the front 7 on defense. That defense, top 10 in points per game given up. I mean, solid. So I think that's another good point when you're looking at like the surprise team. I can get behind it. The biggest reason why is like if that defense has similar production, what's the number Nebraska's got to put up in some of these games, especially first 7-week stretch?
Yeah. And I think, man, the back, like I said, you got Ohio State. Probably going to drop that one. UCLA, you should beat UCLA. These last 3 games at USC, Wisconsin at home, Iowa. If you can win 2 or 3 of those, you're a 10-2 football team.
I know.
So that's a huge step up, especially with a freshman quarterback and all the excitement around this program in the offseason. I mean, that would be huge for this team. So
I agree. But just like, what's the number? Right? He might not have to put up super.
That's what I'm saying. Just throw the ball 15, 20 times a game.
Like this first 7-week stretch, you get Colorado, Northern Iowa, Illinois, at Purdue, and Rutgers.
Yep. And at Indiana.
That bye week and then at Indiana. Yes.
Okay. Bye week.
So that is just insane. It's like Purdue and Illinois, they're going to be – here's the thing. That's going to be other really tough defenses. I mean, if this guy can just put up like 28 points, sometimes even 21, like I think they'll be fine if the defense can produce like they did last year. However, I'm not sure. I need to see it click first.
Yeah.
Colorado rivalry game. Luckily, they get it at home. I do have them winning that game as of right now. But for some reason, when they start conference play, Illinois at Purdue and Rutgers is going to be a sneaky team this year. They have a very easy schedule. Illinois, they're always going to have a really good defense under Bielema. At Purdue, I feel bad for Purdue. They have like one of the toughest schedules in all football this year. But that 3-week stretch, something fishy. If it can get clicking right there, then it's gonna be good for Raiola and the boys. Then you hit that bye week, and not only do you have to like go to Ohio State, but you have a back-to-back road stretch after going to Indiana and then Ohio State. Like you said, I think that Ohio State game might be ugly. It might be where the boys get humbled.
Yep.
And also, don't be sleeping on Indiana now. Kurt Sangetti over there. Shout out JMU, Sunbelt Supremacy. You know what I'm saying? They're going to be a solid team, definitely better than they have been under Tom Allen. Then you get UCLA, a good recovery game after playing Ohio State at home, bye week, and then that 3-week stretch, man. They could lose all 3 of those games.
Yeah, they could. Yeah.
And as of right now, I do have them losing all 3. I think they could get Wisconsin at home right there in the middle of that 2-game road stretch they got at USC and at Iowa. I think they can easily go. I think 8-4 is probably the safest number on Nebraska right now. Maybe or 9-3, 8-4, 9-3.
Yeah, I have them at 9-3.
I think Raiola. It's going to take a little bit more time. Like it sounds like it's going to be a little too good to be true as a true freshman. No pun intended. But hey, if that defense can produce, and they could only drop to Ohio State, but I do see them dropping to USC as well. And I do like Iowa this year because they have
Yeah.
an easy schedule.
Their
And
schedule's cake.
that rivalry game, man, Iowa's been owning Nebraska as of late. So
Yeah.
we'll see. It'll be an interesting season for the Huskers. I'm very excited to see them play.
Mm-hmm.
My surprise team is
Tell me about it.
Michigan Wolverines. Let me get that off the screen real fast. All right. So I got the Michigan Wolverines as my surprise team. A lot of people have them just inside the top 10, and well, we only got to rank them up there because, you know, for whatever reason, no, they just won the national championship. We can't write them off. You got a new head coach in Jerome Moore. You got all the off the field BS going on with the recruiting violations, and quarterback's gone and JJ McCarthy, lead running back Blake Corum's gone. What are the Wolverines going to do? I think they're going to do just fine. Jake brought up a good point in our first episode talking about the Texas-Michigan game. And really diving in, it's like, yeah, they lost some key talent on offense, but on defense, they returned Will Johnson, who's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, probably the first DB off the board. They're bringing back edge rusher Mason Graham, who is going to be a first-round draft pick, one of the top defensive linemen in the country. How many people are going to be able to truly block this Michigan front seven? The biggest question mark is quarterback. Projected starter is Alex Orji right now, obviously known for his legs and being elusive in the pocket. The arm's a big question mark. We'll see how that goes, but they might not have to rely on him. He might not have to be J.J. McCarthy to make the playoff. He's got Donovan Edwards in the backfield, and Michigan's also going to have a good running back room. I'm looking forward to seeing who's going to be that second guy, kind of like Donovan Edwards has been the past 2 years, to step up right behind him this year as the premier back. I'll run through their schedule real fast. Fresno State, that's going to be an interesting game. Michigan's favored by 21.5 right now. I think they'll easily win it. But just to kind of get the tone set so we can finally see Orji in this offense. And Fresno State, a top half Mountain West team, it's not like you're playing a MAC school or a team from the FCS, so it's not complete terrible competition. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's a solid little start for them. Then you host Texas, and Jake's kind of swayed me in this direction. At first, I was like, yeah, man, I like Texas more. But the more injuries Texas is getting, the more reliable or the more heavy I'm leaning towards Michigan. So I did flip my pick. I am going to take the Wolverines at home in this game. Then you get Arkansas State at home, USC at home, Minnesota at home. So your first 5 games are all at home. I think you get wins in every single one of those. Then you have to travel and national championship rematch at Washington. Man, you'll see next episode we're talking about our futures bets. I know we didn't cover Washington, or we're not going to cover Washington a lot today. However, I'm not too high on the Huskies this year. It's just the complete 180 turn of what has happened. They got cut dry, staff and personnel. So it's going to be a little rough over there. I do have the Wolverines picking up the win at Washington. Then you get a much-needed bye week. Hit the road to Illinois, get the win back at home against rival Michigan State. Then you get Oregon at home, and I do have you dropping this one. I'm just more sold on Oregon at this point. It's when I'm looking at offensive lines and defenses that can truly compete with Michigan up front. There's only a select few in the country, and Oregon is one of those teams, and I think it'll come down to quarterback play. I don't think you're going to just need serviceable quarterback play to beat Oregon. I think you're going to need a playmaker. And until I see Alex Orji be that playmaker, I'm going to take Dylan Gabriel and the Ducks. And you travel to Indiana, get a little bounce back spot, get the win. You have a bye week. You get a layup in Northwestern. Well, we'll see. Typically a layup in Northwestern. And then you finish out your season on the road at the Shoe against Ohio State. And I do have you picking up your second loss of the year, finishing the year 10-2. And we'll talk more about both the Ducks and the Buckeyes. But that is I do have Michigan in my playoff as of right now. For the sake of this exercise, if you're losing to two of the top 5 teams in the country, I'd say that's a pretty successful year. And I think it's going to be surprising to some people how Michigan's still right there in the heat of it.
No, I liked all that coverage of Michigan 100%. I'm kind of high on Michigan. Like you said, that week 2 Texas game, I think they win that game. My biggest thing with the quarterback situation, and Hunt, you can chip in here, was J.J. McCarthy's role last year was nothing crazy. As a quarterback, make third down throws, don't turn the ball over, and just manage the football game. I mean, he threw average probably, 10, 12 throws a game. Orji is definitely a better runner, I think, in my opinion. I think he'll definitely be able to bring something to the table with his legs. But if this guy can just game manage, that's all you have to do. You don't have to be – you're not going to have a bunch of throws where he's 5-step dropping and he's got 5 different progressions he's got to get to. McCarthy never did that. It was quick. It was play action. It was just quick reads, like reading one linebacker. It's either got a slant or you got a flat. If Orji can just game manage, man, the defense, I mean, it's the same. They're going to keep them in games. I like how you noted. I mean, their front seven is going to be tough. There's 3 games on their schedule that are their wild card games: Texas, Oregon, Ohio State. I think you can bully Texas the entire game on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Keep the run game going. Same thing with Oregon. I mean, I think Dylan Gabriel might pick you apart. But those, I mean, they're not – all 3 of these games on the schedule, I don't think they're 100% losses. It just depends on how we'll see early how Orji really is good against Fresno State and Texas. But if this guy can just game manage and – because JJ, I mean, a lot of people are so high on JJ McCarthy. I don't get it. I mean, he did not do anything crazy. He never had to throw the ball 30 times a game, put the game in his hands. It was always on Donovan Blake Corum. So I'm excited. I'm rooting for the Orji guy just because I am not a JJ McCarthy guy. He sucks. He is terrible. So.
No, I can second just about everything you said, and that's kind of the point I was getting at. Was he doesn't have to be anything special. He just has to make those plays with his legs if that's how they're going to use them, because they are so talented up front that I don't think at the end of the day it's going to matter. However, I think that was probably the biggest point I was getting at, is that you're going to need a little bit more than a game manager when you're facing Oregon and Ohio State, and that's why I had to drop in those 2 games. But I completely agree with the rest of the schedule. Maybe Texas, that's going to be interesting. We'll see.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think Texas is facing so many injuries, and they had so many people leave on the defensive side of the ball to where I don't know if he's really going to have to do all of that much. Yeah. It's just limiting the turnovers is probably going to be the biggest thing to see.
Yeah. And another thing is with this team is, like I talked about with Florida State, is their mindset. I think they have a chip on their shoulder. Jerome Moore, I mean, he's a motivator. We saw last year. I mean, the guys love him, and they're being very overlooked in the Big Ten. Everybody's looking at Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State. Michigan's your defending national champs. They just went undefeated, ran through the whole country. I'm not a big fan of them, but might be rooting for them a little bit just to show that they're still here, and I think we're going to see that very quickly in week 2.
I'm right there with you, brother. So those are our surprise teams for the Big Ten. That'll lead us into the wild card teams, and players except Jake decided to roll with Penn State head coach James Franklin as his wild card individual. So I chose the USC Trojans and Miller Moss. I will happily go first.
Go for it.
I'm a big Lincoln Riley offensive believer. I think that he doesn't have like the household name right now. Like he's had, let me take these off. He's had Caleb Williams, obviously Heisman Trophy winner, Kyler Murray, Heisman Trophy winner, Baker Mayfield, Heisman Trophy winner. So 3 of the last 4 starters that Lincoln Riley's had is won the Heisman, the only exception being Spencer Rattler in 2022, I believe it was. And he only ended up playing half the year before Caleb came in and took over. So for every reason why people think USC's defense is going to still be lackluster and still give up a lot of points, is every reason for me to believe that Miller Moss is going to be – he might not be that high of a talent level, but you're going to get good quarterback play out of him. You're still going to put up numbers. You're still going to find – Lincoln Riley's going to be able to find the open holes in the defense. I just want to talk about a few receivers on this team that are all coming back. They're all sophomores or juniors, so they've all played a lot. well, there's only two of them I'm really going to point out. I think everybody knows about Zachariah Branch, one of the fastest players in all of college football. He's finally going to move into that next role this year, and I'm very excited to see how well he produces at this level. Then you got Deuce Robinson, sick name, but watching him play in the bowl game too, making some awesome catches out there on the field. And I think the biggest thing is we have seen a one-game sample size of Miller Moss, and the way he was just slinging that ball around, 5 or 6 touchdown passes against Louisville, a Louisville team that was right there in the ACC hunt, the playoff hunt all year, and USC just goes out there and dials it up. Nobody ever heard of this kid, and he's out there with great pocket presence. He's showing off the arm slots, not scared of pressure. I'm very interested to see how he performs against Big Ten defenses, though. Biggest loss is probably Marshawn Lloyd at running back. He's now at the Green Bay Packers. I'm very interested to see who kind of takes that running back role, because even though, yes, Lincoln Riley quarterbacks are gunslingers and always find a way to be successful to the air, you still have to have some sort of run game going. I will run through USC's schedule right now. They get LSU in Vegas on Sunday night, and I got them winning that game. We talked about it in the SEC preview. I'm not that high on LSU this year, and I think USC is going to come out slinging. I need to see it from Garrett Nussmeier, like in a big-time game, because he showed up. I think he's had 4 appearances, one in the SEC championship in 2022 against Georgia, where at first he looked terrible at the end of the first half. And then in the second half, he had some good throws, I'm not going to lie. And then he played in the Cheez-It Bowl that year, dropped 50 points against Purdue. And I'm not even going to get into that. Purdue sucks. And then, let's see, he played against Alabama last year, did not look good at all when he came in to play against Alabama. And he also played in the bowl game against Wisconsin. And he made some good throws, but it was nothing that just blew me away. I was more impressed by seeing Miller Moss play in his one game than I have seen Garrett Nussmeier in his 4 appearances. I'm going to take USC, but that is a losable game. Kind of like why I have them as a wild card is because I do have them winning 10 games this season, but I could also see a world where they only win 6 or 7, just depending on how good the Big Ten is and how good USC can perform up front. I think the biggest question mark is their defense. They do bring in D'Anton Lynn, and he got UCLA's defense rolling. They were a top 10 defense in, I don't know if it was the Power 5 or the just college football in general. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he got them rolling. He's getting his personnel through the transfer portal in there to play defensive back and middle linebacker. You still got Barry Alexander holding down at defensive tackle. I'm very interested to see, and I think he can really turn this program around, because I think Lincoln Riley also knows that if he doesn't get it going here, that he might be out of a job within the next 2 years. So I'm banking on USC's defense to make a little bit of improvement here. So you start with LSU in Vegas, then you get Utah State at home, hit the bye week. Then you got to travel to Michigan. I think this is going to be a loss. This is the first time you have to travel across the country in a Big Ten game, and you're going to play at the Big House. Michigan's defense is legit, so I do have you taking a loss there. Then you get Wisconsin at home. I think it's huge that you get this game at home because their defense is also going to be very stout. But since it's their first time traveling, I think travel has a huge part in all of this. Then you got to go to Minnesota, which is probably the most Western original Big Ten team. I'm just not high on Minnesota this year. I do think you get the win. Then you get Penn State. Penn State traveling all the way from Happy Valley to Southern Cal, and I think you get the win there. Not high on Penn State this year. We'll get more into that later. But after that big win and after this huge stretch, you got to travel all the way to College Park, Maryland on the other side of the country. I think you drop it. Just a terrible spot for you. I don't like the travel spot at all, especially after playing defenses like Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Penn State. I think it's going to be tiring, beat up. I do have you dropping that game to a not-so-good Maryland team. You get a recovery game against Rutgers, who could be sneaky good this year, but you do get them at home. They're traveling all the way from coast to coast. You go to Washington, close travel, but Washington's not going to be very good this year, in my opinion. Then you get a much-needed bye week. You get Nebraska at home. I think you getting your legs under you. I think defense will be rolling at this point. Miller Moss will be a lot more. Obviously, this is going to be game number 10, so you'll definitely be settled in. I do have you getting the win against Nebraska. You go to a right down the road, 15 minutes to UCLA, who's not very good this year. Got you winning that one. And I do have you beating Notre Dame to finish your year and get the playoff spot, finishing the year at 10-2.
Wait to talk about USC when we get to the next slide. So,
yeah, I know. I'll let you hop on Penn State.
Yeah, so my thing with Penn State is every year the problem and the issue, there's two teams to get in the way. It's Ohio State, Michigan, every single year. And that's why James Franklin, he's on there for me. When is it going to get to the point where he can take the next step and beat one of these teams? Well, luckily, this year Michigan's not on the schedule, so it's just Ohio State. You know how good Ohio State is. Probably going to drop that. They do get them at home, but Ohio State's roster, they're just 10 times better than Penn State's roster, in my opinion, especially as far as weapons go. But can you win the rest of your game? So that puts you at 11-1. At some point, James Franklin has to make that next step and get his guys rolling. And I think week 1, you got a big road test at West Virginia. But about Michigan and Ohio State, they've lost 3 straight to Michigan, and they're 1-11 against Ohio State in the past 12 matchups. That's what's kept you from making any kind of national championship run every year, any kind of contender like runs, I guess. So offensively, I think Drew Allar got a lot of heat last year. I think, Hunt, you'd have to back me up on this. Was he a freshman last year or sophomore?
He was a sophomore.
Okay.
He backed up Will Levis his freshman year.
Okay, that's right then. So, but it was his first year playing legit snaps, and I think he got a lot of heat where it wasn't needed, just in the sense that who did he have to throw to? And they got Julian Fleming from Ohio State, and I think that'll be a huge addition early on. Throughout the whole season. And they got Coach Andy. I'm not even going to try to say his last name. He's the offensive coordinator from Kansas. And I think he'll be able to do a little bit more in the passing game. And obviously you have Nicholas Singleton. I think he'll be one of the best running backs in the Big Ten. And I think the ongoing theme with the Big Ten is defense is keeping some of these teams in games. And I think Penn State's another one of those teams. Last year, they finished number 1 in the nation in sacks and tackles for a loss, was number 2 behind Michigan in total defense, and they were 3rd nationally in scoring defense. So this defense is going to be solid. And then obviously you just got to get the offense going and score some points. And it comes down. They had that game marked on their schedule, Ohio State at home. That's going to be a chance to really show the country what you're made of and compete in that game. But I'll go through their schedule this Saturday. You're at West Virginia on the road. I got them winning that one. Then you go Bowling Green and Kent State back to back. Obviously, I think you take both of those, and then start Big Ten play with Illinois, UCLA. I think you win both of those. And then you have a 3-game stretch. I did not look to see if there's any buys in the middle of these, but you go to USC, and then you have at Wisconsin, and then you get Ohio State at home. I think those USC and Wisconsin games are very huge. I think those kind of fill in like your Michigan games that you're missing, your Michigan game that you're missing this year. You need to win both of those because you have Ohio State coming up. Give your chance a chance to be in the Big Ten championship. The back half, obviously I have Ohio State a loss, and then Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland. I think they win the last 4 games on their schedule. So I think they drop one of these games to USC or Wisconsin. I'm leaning Wisconsin just because I think they're going to be able to bully USC. And you'll learn why here in a minute when I talk about them. So I have Penn State at 10-2. They're my wild card team just because of the fact, can James Franklin win 11 games and have his only loss as Ohio State, Wisconsin, or USC, not have a 2-loss season? Because every year it's 10-2. Who are your losses? Michigan, Ohio State. What's it going to be this year? So that's what I have on Penn State.
I'm back. Sorry.
No, you're good.
But yeah, I know. I got something to add on Penn State, and I think it's ironic because these are our 2 wild card teams, and then you look at the disappointing teams, and it's just roles reversed. Do you? I guess I'll just go ahead and add on to Penn State since you've already been talking about them.
Yeah,
I do have them as my most disappointing team heading into 2024. I like the argument. This is the same argument I've heard everybody make. Oh, this playoff's made for Penn State. All they do is go 10-2. They just lose to Michigan. They lose to Ohio State. But everybody else, they whoop the crap out of. I just think James Franklin might be Mark Richt 2.0. Just going to say it. Just can't win the big one. He's always right there on the edge of it, and he always just finds a way to come up short. And until he proves me wrong, I'm going to keep betting against him. Now, I will say this team can very likely go 11-1 and host a home playoff game, which would be sick if they host a home playoff game.
Yeah, that'd be electric.
However, I do have them going 9-3. I do. I'm just not sold on Drew Aller. Yeah, the 25 touchdowns, the 2 picks looks really, really good. But if you turn on the tape, this guy sucks on the road. He cannot. Anybody who watched that Ohio State game, you have to wonder yourself, how is this guy a competent quarterback for Penn State?
Yeah, it was pitiful.
It was bad. I think he completed 40% of his passes. It was terrible. And yes, it's like, well, you got Nicholas Singleton, and I forget the other cat's name in the backfield. You might have to back me up there, but they're both really solid. And yeah, they got some solid offensive line, but you lose Olu Fashanu, I believe was his name, to the Jets in the first round this year. That was their left tackle.
They're losing 3 starters of the draft.
There you go. I mean, it's just like, who are you going to replace? Yeah. Because if they couldn't get movement against Ohio State last year, they're sure as heck ain't going to do it this year. And there are a few other defensive fronts who I'm like, okay, you going to be able to move them, you know?
Yeah.
Like at Wisconsin, that's a terrible spot. Though they do get a bye week before they play Wisconsin. So I know you said you weren't sure. It's at USC, then they get a bye week, and then they go to Wisconsin. And then they finish out their schedule.
Yeah.
I'll go through this real fast. No spoilers for Thursday, but I will just say that West Virginia is live. I said it yesterday in the Big 12 preview. West Virginia is live in this game against Penn State. I'm telling you, Garrett Green, CJ Donaldson, and Morgantown, big noon kickoff, that place is going to be rocking.
It's going to be rocking, yeah.
Now, I will say, Penn State did walk right into Jordan-Hare and whoop up on Auburn a few years ago with Nicholas Singleton and the other cat. I can't remember his name right now. Sorry about that. But they rolled right into Jordan-Hare. Now, that was a very terrible Auburn team. I actually think this West Virginia team was better than Auburn in 2022. So,
yeah,
we shall see. No spoilers, though. Not picking a winner in that game. But no. Screw it. I'll just say it. I do have them down losing to West Virginia in week 1. Bowling Green at home, good recovery spot. Then you get the bye week. Kent State, Illinois, UCLA, your next 4 games. Those should all be easy wins. That should be what builds up the confidence of this team. I just need to see it offensively out of them. That's probably the biggest thing. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, if you get in a shootout with Lincoln Riley, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
If you get in a shootout with Lincoln Riley, you're going to lose. Now, if your defense can travel, which defense most times does travel, however, if you lose Chop Robinson, a few other key prospects, I don't know. I do have you dropping it to USC, having to make that long travel. Because now it'd be one thing if they had a bye week. If they had a bye week before that USC game, I'd feel a lot more confident about them winning. But the end of a 5-game road stretch and you got to travel all the way to Southern Cal, I don't like that spot for them at all. I do have them dropping it. Then you get your bye week and you got to go to Wisconsin. Luckily, this is not back-to-back road spots. Everybody knows how I feel about back-to-back road spots on this show. I hate them. Do think you get the win over Luke Fickell. I don't care that this game's at home. It's going to be big noon kickoff. You're getting your butt whooped by Ohio State. They are going to run through you. I'm not going to even – PG. Keep it PG. Ohio State's going to get it. You get Washington. Not going to repeat myself. Not high on them. At Purdue, at Minnesota, and Maryland. So after that Ohio State game, you have one of the easiest 4-game stretches in the entire Big Ten. I will say this is a very favorable schedule for them. I mean,
it is.
this is very
especially just to go 11-1.
They could easily go 11-1 and play for the Big Ten championship game. I'm just saying I need to see it from the offense first. I know they brought in Andy Kotelicki from Kansas. We'll see.
Say that last name again.
Andy Kotelicki.
Kotelicki. Yeah, I wasn't going to try it. I just call him Coach Andy.
Yeah, he was the former offensive coordinator at Kansas.
Yeah.
Obviously produced Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal. We talked about Kansas offense yesterday in the Big 12 pod. Like I said, could very easily go 11-1. I just need to see it first. I don't like some of the travel spots, and I think they are in danger week 1 against West Virginia. But that's what I got on the Penn State Nittany Lions, and now I'm ready to get your USC rebuttal, which it's not much of a rebuttal because you're just going to crap on their defense. But go ahead.
That's exactly what I'm going to do. It's exactly what I mean. You have for Penn State, you have to see it from the offensive side of the ball, which makes sense. That is very valid. We need to see it from Drew Aller, and then I have to see it from the defensive side in USC. I don't think there's a lot of questions on the offensive side of the ball for USC. The only thing I'm worried about is Miller Moss. Just one game, man, and it was a bowl game. Louisville they were in playoff contention all year last year, and all of a sudden, season just ruined. So I don't think they were up for that game. But anyway, I think Miller Moss, he's a great quarterback. Zachariah Branch, the receiver, he's going to be electric. I'm excited to see him. And in 2023, they were 8-1 when they scored 42 or more. But in the Big Ten, you're not in the Pac-12 anymore. It's not the Pac-12 after dark. It's the big noon kickoff. So I don't think you're going to be able to score 40 points a game on this schedule. And it's all about your defense, man. That's what it comes down to with Lincoln Riley's teams. They got the new defensive coordinator from UCLA, Danton Lynn, I think is it Danton or Danton? In an interview before the season or during camp this fall, he said his main priority is to stop the run and send the house at the QB, which is great. But outside of week 1 in LSU, are there any quarterbacks you're going to play that are going to sit in the pocket, throw the ball 40 times a game, and just have that long just progression? I talked about it. I hinted on it with Michigan earlier. It's going to be quick game, quick stuff, play action pass. And outside of LSU, all of these teams you're playing are just quarterbacks that are not going to throw the ball a lot. So the pressure on the quarterback thing, it's great, but you got to stop the run. And I just don't think they can do it. And apparently this Coach Lynn guy from UCLA is supposed to be the savior of the defense, but I don't buy it considering it's a 7-8 month span. They didn't bring in a lot of transfers. I don't think they're not going to be able to do a complete rebuild of their defense in just a 7-8 month span. He is from Harbaugh's coaching tree, which is great, but I just need to see it from the defensive side of the ball. I really need to. I think I have them going 8-4. I know you're a little bit higher on them than me, but I think there's a world where they could go 6-6 on the schedule. I really believe that, and there's a world where they go 11-1 if that defense is improved. So I think none of the defense isn't going to be a factor on – is it Sunday night? Yeah, Sunday night when they play LSU, I think it's going to be 1,000 points to win that game. So we'll see. That's why they're my disappointed team.
I just got a question.
Yeah.
So you have them as your disappointing team, correct? And you have winning 8 games?
Yeah. For the expectation for Lincoln Riley and his team this year is go into the Big Ten and at least win 9-10.
The win total is 7.5.
Yeah, because of their schedule. But if you're not looking at win totals and you're a fan looking on Lincoln Riley is supposed to be the best offensive coach in the country, and they're going to win. I could see them winning 6 games on the schedule. That's it. I just think they're going to be disappointing, and they're not. I don't know. There's a world they go 6-6. They're and in the Big Ten, they're not going 10-2. There's no way with this schedule. There's no way. You got LSU, you're a dog in it. At Michigan and Wisconsin back-to-back weeks. Penn State, Rutgers is a sneaky game. Nebraska is a sneaky game. I got them dropping that one. And then Notre Dame is the last game of the season. That's 5 or 6 games right there that you could 100% lose. So
no, I agree. They could easily lose all those games and go 6-6. But I don't know. I'm a Miller Moss believer, man. I'm really banking on the fact that Coach Lynn gets it done with adding the personnel, and hopefully Bear Alexander gets his head out of his rear this year. So
yeah, rooting for him for sure.
Disappointing team concluded. Off to the Big Ten Player of the Year. So Jake, I know sometimes when we do Player of the Year, we do team dives, but we have a lot more on both of these teams. So let's try and keep it to the player on this one.
Okay.
I'll go first. That's fine. I got Dylan Gabriel representing the Oregon Ducks. He is right now the Heisman Trophy favorite when you look at FanDuel Sportsbook. Dylan Gabriel and the Ducks. Dan Lanning, this is huge for him. I know I'm gonna keep it to the player, I promise. Dylan Gabriel started off UCF, had a 2-week stint at UCLA, and then ended up in Oklahoma. Showed out last year at Oklahoma. I'm going to be honest. I was shocked that he went into the Red River rivalry, beat Texas, and that they were right there in the playoff hunt. And obviously had a letdown at the end of the season, losing to Kansas and Oklahoma State. But this guy's got the most talent he's ever had around him. He's got a great defense backing him up. So I don't know how many points this guy's going to have to put up every single game, but he's going to put up numbers with Evan Stewart and Tez Johnson as his two receivers. He's got a great offensive line, great coaching scheme set around him. He's the Heisman Trophy favorite for a reason, and I'm just really big on them. And I think that the Ducks are going to show out this year, and he's going to be the main reason why with all that talent that surrounds him. And I think just the numbers at the end of the day are what's going to prevail him to being the player of the year. Yeah, Jake.
No, yeah, I like that a lot. Dylan Gabriel, he's going to be great. And, I had him at first, but then I went with an Ohio State player because they're my conference champ. And I would like to apologize because I noticed it too in the past 3 conference previews we've done. When I talk about the player of the year, I kind of talk about the team more than I do the player. So I will try my best to stick to the player. But so originally I had Will Howard written down just because it's going to be I had him as the best player, the best quarterback on the best team, I'll say. But I went a different direction with TreVeyon Henderson. I guess you could call this a dark horse pick because everybody knows they brought in Keyshawn Judkins. But the first thing, I think this is the best offensive line that TreVeyon Henderson will have in his 3 years so far he's had at Ohio State. They brought in Seth McLaughlin from Bama, the center, and then a 6'5", 310-pound transfer tackle from San Jose State. So this line is going to be great for him. And, yeah, they have a 2-back system, but I think it's really going to rest on TreVeyon Henderson's shoulders. His freshman season, he rushed for 1,100 yards. That was in 2021, 3 years ago. And then 2 years ago in 22, he only had 571 yards. I don't think he played in every game. And then last year, he ran for 854 yards with 11 touchdowns. And this is his senior year now. Like I said, he's got the best line. I think that they're going to put the ball in his hands when it matters the most. And he's going to have a 1,200-yard rushing season. He'll have 15 to 20 rushing touchdowns. And he'll be the reason why everybody else is going to thrive off of him and get energy off of him. I think this guy is legit. And next year it'll be Keyshawn Judkins who leads the backfield if he stays. But, I'm banking on TreVeyon Henderson to be my Big Ten Player of the Year.
I don't hate that pick at all. However, the only thing that kept me skeptical about the entire thing was that it is a 2-back system. And it's just I don't know if he have the numbers. That's probably the biggest thing is I don't know if he's going to have the numbers to get it done. He very well could. We'll see. But I think people kind of forgot about how good he was after he dealt with so many injuries last year.
Exactly. Yeah.
When he's healthy and if he's
a dog
right there with him, dude, he's a dog. And we'll talk.
And I'll be the first to admit I forgot. I mean, his freshman year, man, 1,100 yards on the ground and 15 touchdowns. That was in 2021. Like that. It feels like forever ago, but I'm excited to watch him. But it's like you said, he's going to have. Will the numbers be there? So
that was the only concern on why I did not put Judkins was because or Henderson is because are the numbers going to be there?
Yeah, for sure.
Sneaky pick is Will Howard.
Yeah, that's who I had written down at first.
This is my take. We'll just go ahead and hang on. Let me pull this up real fast. We'll go ahead and get to that right there. We both have Ohio State taking on Oregon in the Big Ten championship. Pretty chalk. They are the 2 favorites to win the conference as of right now. Yeah, I just don't see a world where this is not the matchup unless it's Penn State that sneaks in here or USC. But I do not see a world where this truly is not the 2 best teams in this conference, and this is not the championship game. I have futures on both of these teams to win the Big Ten. So I'll kind of let I'll bring us both on. We can just kind of piggyback off each other. I want to continue that Will Howard conversation. My take on Will Howard is he's going to be Stetson Bennett this year.
Yeah, I like that comp. I do.
I think that Will Howard is not going to have to be a playmaker. He's not going to have to like air it out and throw for, 400 yards a game.
Yep.
He's not going to have to rush for 50 yards a game if he doesn't need to. But Chip Kelly runs the ball, run first. He always talks about how much he loves to run the ball. Well, you got Travion Henderson. You got Quinshon Judkins out of the portal. Your offensive line is probably the best it has been in the past 2 or 3 years when you've been right there in the mix.
Yeah.
And then reports are showing that Will Howard came out running 21.5 miles an hour the other day at practice.
Yeah.
So the run game is not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And then we even have to talk about receiver when it comes to Ohio State. You got Emeka Egbuka coming back. He's a dog. Everybody knows who that is. I know he dealt with some injuries last year, but he's going to be just as much of a playmaker as he's been his entire career. And then you got 5-star true freshman Jeremiah Smith, and people are saying he's already better than Emeka Egbuka. They're saying he's already the best receiver.
He's like 6'4", maybe. I think he's 6'4". Get him in the red zone, man. Yeah, see here, I have right here, 6'3", 210 pounds. He's going to be – I think he'll be really good in the red zone for this team.
He was the number
Big
one
target.
recruit. Number one recruit out of this past class, and everybody is saying he's going to make an immediate impact. He might be the leading receiver on this team.
Yeah.
I'm very high on the Buckeyes this year. I'll run through their schedule real fast, and then I'll let you talk about them a little bit, and we'll hop into the Ducks. So the Buckeyes of Ohio State, this team could easily go 12-0. This is the best team Ryan Day has had, the most physical team. I mean, he probably had about 6 or 7 starters on that defense last year who could have easily been drafted in the first 3 or 4 rounds of that draft, and they all came back. Then on top of that, you're adding Caleb Downs to play safety for you. On top of that, you're adding Quinshon Judkins to your running back room. This team is the most set up for success that it has ever been. Ryan Day, everybody likes to crap on him for losing to Michigan and just can't win the big one, which up to this point is true. However, Ryan Day is a missed kick away from his entire legacy and the way we talk about him being completely different. If that kicker doesn't shank that kick in the Peach Bowl in 2022, Ohio State wins the national championship, and nobody is, calling for Ryan Day to be a terrible coach or a bad coach or anything like that. He would have won a national championship. But reality of the situation is that's not true. This guy does have the highest winning percentage of all active coaches in college football right now. And I will say, with this roster, and you get Michigan at home, if you lose to them for a 4th consecutive year, I would consider that disappointing. However, I do have you beating Michigan. We already talked about that. The only loss I see on this schedule is at Oregon, just because you had to travel to the road. I just find it hard to believe that any team is going undefeated. But if there are 2 teams that will go undefeated this year, it is Oregon and it is Ohio State. I think those are the 2 teams in the entire country, not just the Big Ten. They have the best chances of going undefeated heading into 2024. I do only have you dropping that 1 to Oregon, and I got you right there in the Big Ten championship at 11-1, facing off against the one team you lost to in the regular season in the Ducks. Jake?
I have the same outcome for them as far as wins and losses go. I think they dropped that Oregon game. I think the biggest thing for this team with this schedule is that 4-game stretch. I don't know if there's a bye in there, but I don't think it matters. Is staying healthy. You got a mini playoff schedule in the middle of your season. You got Iowa, at Oregon, Nebraska, Penn State, and you get 3 of those games at home. But those are all 4 they're going to be very good football teams that are going to be ready to play you. You're on top of the hill right now, and everybody's coming for you in this conference, especially this year with all the hype you've had around them. I think the biggest thing, and you touched on it at the end, I've made a checklist for this team and Ryan Day to be considered just a successful season, a step up from last year in the past few years. The first thing, in all caps, you got to beat Michigan. There's no excuse to not beat Michigan. With this team, Harbaugh's gone. You get him at home. You cannot lose to this team 4 years in a row. That's the first thing. Second thing, obviously, what feeds off of that, win the Big Ten. It's probably going to be against Oregon. You drop that game or win that game in the regular season, beat them again, or get your juice back on them. And then the third is at least we need to see him play for a national championship. Ryan Day needs to make one. It's going to be very hard for any team, regardless if it's Georgia, Texas, Alabama, whoever. Whoever makes and wins the national championship is going to be very hard to do with just how this schedule is. And getting that first round bye is going to be a big part in this, is teams getting healthy and having everybody ready. So at least make the national championship. I don't think I've seen a lot of people on TV and just social media talking about it's national championship or bust for Ohio State this year. I don't think it is. I don't think it's that for any team, and it will be for any team in the 12-team playoff era. Winning a 12-team playoff bracket with as long of a season as it is going to be really hard. So, but I want to see him play for one. And going to Will Howard, like you said, he's not going to have to be – I mean, his legs alone are going to be able to, he'll be fine. He's got a good run game, good offensive line. But in that 4-game stretch, you got Iowa, Oregon, Nebraska, Penn State, all 4 very good defenses. 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 7s. Can he make that third down throw when they're going to have him contained and they're going to force him to throw? Because I think that's how you're going to beat him. I mean, you're going to stop the run and make him throw. Load the box, and let's see Will Howard, what he can do with his arm. So I think that's what it comes down to. And obviously, Jim Knowles and that defense, they're just as scary as their offense is. I mean, that defense is very scary. So, yeah, that's what I have on Ohio State.
I agree with every point you just made, especially one that I didn't point out that you did, and I think you did a very good job, is talking about how it's not national championship or bust with the 12-team playoff.
I don't think it's going to be like that ever in the playoff era.
The expectation should be win the national championship every year. However, I think with how difficult and how many more games you got to play with all these new conferences, I think it's beat Michigan, compete for the Big Ten championship or bust. I think that's solid. Like, if you don't beat Michigan, your season, that's just terrible to begin with.
It just messes everything up.
Yeah, but I think it's compete for the Big Ten championship or bust for Ohio State.
Yeah.
Because once you're in the playoff, it's anybody's game now. It is. Yeah. It's not like the 4-team where, there weren't buys and there wasn't home field advantage, but it's compete for the Big Ten championship or bust. And I think that's how it should be for just about any team.
Yeah.
To back off of that, it's like once you're in the playoff, you got a shot.
Yeah, anybody's got a shot. Yeah,
exactly.
It's what I'm interested to see is the teams that play in that first round with the home games, regardless if it's home team that wins or it's away team that lost their last regular season game, but they snuck in. If they go on the road, let's say Ole Miss goes and beats Penn State on the road, that momentum shift is just going to be insane. And then you go and play a top dog, and you're like, oh shit, we're ready to play. This is it. I'm so pumped for the playoff. So I did not mean to drop the F-bomb on the pod, but I think I really believe there's going to be, and you'll see it in my bracket when we go through it. There's going to be a team. It's going to be like baseball, man. Somebody's going to catch heat in that first round game. There's going to be a road team that goes into a hostile environment and wins. They're going to get the juices flowing, and that's when teams like Georgia, Ohio State, and whoever the hell wins the ACC and the Big 12. You better be shitting your britches because somebody's coming. So that's my thing. I don't even know how I got off on that, but we'll see. I think we're talking about it just because of how hard it's going to be to win the national championship. Somebody's going to catch heat in the postseason. Yeah, that's what I got.
No, I love it.
And potential rematches. What if it's flipped? What if Ole Miss loses the SEC champ? They go 12-0. They lose the SEC championship, and then you got Penn State and Ole Miss. Penn State wins, right? And then they have a rematch with Ohio State. Oh my God, that's I can't wait. I'm so ready. This is awesome. So yeah, I didn't mean to get off on that spill. My bad. Let's get our attention back towards Big Ten championship game. We've been through Ohio State. Hunter, I want you to tell me about the Oregon Ducks in Eugene, Oregon. Tell me about it.
All right, I can do that. So this year, the Ducks, first year in the Big Ten. I really like their personnel. I like their roster. You are adding, let's see, what did I put down right here? Yep, you got wide receiver depth coming in with Evan Stewart, playmaker. As soon as he stepped on the field at Texas A&M as a true freshman, and now he is a junior or senior this year playing with Dylan Gabriel, who is a 5th or 6th year quarterback, slinging him the rock. I just talked about him, how he's my player of the year. Another key part I do want to talk about with the Ducks is, for whatever reason, if Dillon Gabriel does go down or something happens to him, they do have quarterback depth. They added Dante Moore, who was UCLA starter last year, originally committed to Oregon out of high school, flipped at the last second to UCLA to play for Chip Kelly. Now he's back at Oregon with Dan Lanning. So if something were to happen, you do have a serviceable 5-star quarterback waiting in the wings for you. Another key point, and I think this is kind of what hurt the Ducks at the end of the year, especially when you saw them play against Washington. They added corner depth. And ironically enough, they added Washington's top corner, Jabbar Muhammad. And if you watched any Washington games last year, whether it was the first or second time they played Oregon or even that semifinal game in the Sugar Bowl against Texas, Jabbar Muhammad had such a big impact on number one receivers on opposing teams. I think that is a huge pickup. You also picked up 4-star out of the portal Cam Alexander from UTSA, one of the top corners in the group of 5. Very interested to see how he does. And you also add safety Peyton Woodyard from Alabama, who is a 4-star. They ended up recruiting out of the portal with the number 3 total class, which is huge for the Ducks heading into this year. I've already talked about Dillon Gabriel enough, so I'm just going to hop right into their schedule. This is a very favorable schedule, I'd say. You start off with Idaho, get the win. You get Boise State at home, which a lot of people are picking Boise State to be the group of 5 team to represent as a 12 seed this year. And I'm not in on them. I'm just going to be honest. As a Georgia Southern fan, I'm going to be at that game on Saturday. They are coming down here to Statesboro to play, and they're probably going to whoop us. However, I am not sold on that team at all. Like, the quarterback they just chose looks like Amy Schumer. Like, I'm not buying in to that guy whatsoever at all. However, I do think Ashton Genty's really good. I think the offensive line is going to be good. I'm not trying to go on a Boise State tangent right now, but I have done my homework for my opponent on Saturday. Then you got the Civil War. Praise God, they're keeping rivalries even after all this conference realignment. You go on the road to Corvallis to play Oregon State. Oregon State just got absolutely drained in the portal, and with staff, Jonathan Smith and Aiden Childs heading off to Michigan State. I got Oregon picking up an easy win against crosstown rival. Then you get a much-needed bye week before you have a back-to-back road spot with the bye week in between those. So you're fine. You're going right down the road to UCLA, going to get the win there. Michigan State at home. They got a lot of rebuilding. I know I just talked about Aiden Childs and Jonathan Smith going over there. However, they got a lot of work to do in East Lansing, and you get them at home. I think that's a win. You get Ohio State at home. This is the one game you really got to show up for. This is going to be talent on talent. This is going to be a top 5 matchup, probably the game of the year, potentially. It's in Autzen Stadium. I do have you getting the win in Eugene against the Buckeyes as of right now. Then you hit the road to Purdue. Could be a letdown spot, but just about any other normal Big Ten team, like if this was at Wisconsin or at Maryland or something like that, I'd be a little bit more skeptical, but you're going to Purdue. I think you get the job done. Come back home, play Illinois, get the win. This is a tough spot. At Michigan. Michigan's going to be a tough spot when you're looking at this schedule. And terrible spot for your second bye week. You got it in week 13, right before the rivalry game against Washington. I would have liked to have seen it right here. I am a little skeptical about this Michigan game. However, I do have you going on the road and getting the win. I just have less questions about coaching and personnel on the Ducks versus the Wolverines. You get Maryland at home. That's a win. You got to go to Wisconsin. This could be another letdown spot. I mean, this is like a 7 or 8 game stretch right here where it is tough. This is an 8 games. Yep. 8 games right here where it could be tough for you. Honest to God. This could be a little letdown spot, but I just obviously more set on the personnel of the Ducks than the Badgers. And then you have a much-needed bye week, and then you get Washington, and Washington is not going to be that good this year. And so I do have you finishing the year 12-0 playing for the Big Ten title game.
I love it. That's good. Everything you touched on was just perfect. I think the Michigan and Wisconsin spots are in the back. You could get in some trouble there. I had them sitting at 11-1, and like you just saw in my Big Ten championship game.
Heck yeah, dude. Heck yeah. So we both have them losing to or beating Ohio State in the regular season, correct?
No, I have them losing in Ohio State.
You have them losing to Ohio State. Okay.
Yes.
So you got Ohio State beating them twice.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we both choose the Buckeyes to take home the Big Ten championship for the first time in 3 years, 4 years. Michigan won three in a row, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it'd be the first time in 4 years that the Buckeyes will win. Well, if they do win, that's if it goes how we predict, it'll be the first time in 4 years. I've already kind of hit on them a lot. I have them getting the first round bye in the playoff, as you see, you do too. And I think the biggest thing for me is this one's at a neutral site. I know I did have them losing to Oregon to start the season. This one's at a neutral site. I do not see this talented of a team losing to Oregon twice. Like, another thing is Dan Lanning hasn't been there before yet. He hasn't been there before. Chip Kelly and Ryan Day been there before. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. And obviously the personnel you got.
Yeah.
Ohio State too. So we both got the Buckeyes, but I know we need to do there's one team not in a conference that is making a lot of money for not being in a conference.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to cover because they are a true playoff contender. Let's talk about the Fighting Irish, Stench. I'll let you go first.
Let's do it. I'll start it off. I believe just like every year, even in the 4-team playoff, they have the easiest path in football just to get there. Each year, if you can go 12-0, even 11-1 with the schedule you have, you can get there. And especially now that there's 12 teams, if you go 11-1, you're in. Diving into their team a little bit, I appreciate how they bought into Sam Hartman last year. I thought I was high on him going into the year. I just don't think he was the guy for them, and he wasn't as good as everybody thought he was. He barely reached the 2,500-yard mark in the air, only had 123 yards on the ground. So I think they're waiting to find their quarterback, their guy. The running back's never a question. Enter 6'4", 215-pound Riley Leonard, who had a full year under his belt in 2022. He threw for Duke. He threw for 2,800 yards and rushed for 600. With only 6 interceptions. That's a great stat line, especially considering you play for Duke. And then last year, obviously, he was a big-time player early on in the season before he got hurt. He only played 8 games, but 3 of those were he had a hurt leg. I think it was his ankle he hurt, but he hurt it in that Notre Dame game. Prior to that, he took down Clemson, and in 8 games, 3 of those being injured, he only threw 3 picks. I think Notre Dame, they found their guy, and the combination of him and Jeremiah Love, and like I said a minute ago, there's never a question at running back for Notre Dame. Estime was great last year, and then you had Kyron Williams a few years back. Jeremiah Love will be good, and then they have 2 transfer seniors in who have played legitimate snaps. Bo Collins from FIU and Chris Mitchell and Bo Collins. One's from FIU, one's from Clemson. But they both played legitimate snaps last year. I believe the FIU guy, he got 1,000 yards in the air last year. So 2 good receivers for Riley Leonard and Al Golden, defensive coordinator. Notre Dame, I feel like they always have a competitive defense, even though they might have a little slide here and there. But last year, I mean, against Ohio State, you only gave up 17 points. You still lost the game, but Sam Hartman played terrible. USC, I think they only gave up like 20 to them or something. Al Golden, he's a great defensive coordinator. He's got another great recruiting class coming in. With this schedule, and I'll dive into it, if you give up no more than 20 – you give up 20 points a game, and with that offense, I think Riley Leonard is their guy. You're going to be able to make the playoff. And the ceiling with this team, obviously you don't have to play a conference championship, is 12-0, and you either somehow – I don't know. I think, Hunter, you'll have to back check me on this. If they go 12-0, can they get a bye? Is that possible?
Not possible.
All right, so ceiling 12-0, and you're the number 5 team in the country, and you get a home playoff game against the number 5 team. So
I'm going to cut you off real fast because I heard this on Pardon My Take. They had Marcus Freeman on the other day, but this was before.
I've been meaning to listen to that. Is it good?
No, it's good. But they also had what's his name, Jesse Waters from On3. They didn't bring this up with Coach Freeman, obviously, but Big Cat, huge Wisconsin fan, hates Notre Dame, hates them. But he says he likes Marcus Freeman, whatever. They got along. That's not the point I'm trying to get at. If Notre Dame has still somehow found a way to beat this system, if they go 12, if they go 12-0, they're going to be ranked 1 in the AP, but like technically they have to be a 5 seed since there's no conference championship.
Yeah.
As the 5 seed, you're avoiding the Big Ten, you're avoiding the you're avoiding all of the Power 4 conferences. You're playing the G5 team and you're playing them at home.
Yeah.
And then after that, let me pull up this bracket real fast and just make sure I'm getting these numbers right. If you're the 5 seed, you play the G5 team, and then you're playing
the number 4.
You're playing the worst of the 4 conference champions. Which, guess what? Shocker here. It's not going to be the Big Ten champion. It's not going to be the SEC champion. Those two will be the 1 and 2 seeds. So you're either going to play a weak ACC champion, unless it's Clemson, as I'm very high on them this year, or it's going to be one of those wild card Big 12 teams.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a path to get to the Final Four. Easy.
There is 100%. There is a path for Notre Dame to easily make it to the Final Four, and I just found that very interesting when they pointed that out the other day. But
yeah,
I mean to cut you off, I just wanted to add.
No, you're good. No, I like it. And even if you go 11-1, you're in the playoff. I'll go ahead and get in their schedule. They got Texas A&M in the primetime game on Saturday night. I do have them dropping that one at Kyle Field. And then the rest, I mean, it's pretty cake for the most part. You got Northern Illinois, Purdue, Miami, Ohio. You get Louisville and Stanford at home, and you think you win all those. Very sneaky spot on their schedule, and I thought about this when I looked at their schedule prior to week 0.
I know where you're going.
Even more now at Georgia Tech. Very sneaky spot. I do have them winning it, but by that subject to change, by that point, could be a different story. That's a sneaky game that they do not need to lose. And then you got at Navy, Florida State at home, and I think I've had them winning that game before the season started. And then you get Virginia, and then Army, and then you finish up the season at USC. That'll be a big one as far as playoff hopes go, especially if you drop 1 or 2 in the schedule. That'll be a must-win. I do have them winning that one. And then so I have them finishing up 11-1. Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot. So
yeah, I'm big on Riley Leonard, man. I think they found their guy. I really do. If he's 100% healthy, they'll have a good defense. Jeremiah Love's good. This is going to be a good football team. As much as I hate to say it about Notre Dame, because they get the easy way out each and every single year.
I will talk about personnel first, and then I'll hop into their schedule. I'll say that I'm also with you. As Riley Leonard, it's just he's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay healthy. Ankle injuries and leg injuries are nothing to mess around with, especially for somebody who has the ability to escape the pocket and get those yards and run like he can. It's nothing to mess around with. If Riley Leonard is healthy, this is a playoff team. This
I agree.
100% is a playoff team. Like you covered, the running backs, they're going to be good. The tight ends, this is like one of the tight end U's. But there with Iowa, recently, I know Georgia's had a lot of recruiting tight ends, recruits that are right there with them. The offensive line is going to be – they're usually pretty dang stout. Losing Joe Alt sucks. And then Joe Alt's replacement out for the season. So now you're relying on a true freshman to play left tackle.
Oh, I didn't realize that. His replacement's out for the season?
Yeah, Joe Alt, obviously drafted 4th overall by the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah.
Well, his replacement in fall camp got hurt, and it's going to be interesting. But Mitchell Evans, going to be a great tight end. Definitely discovered who that guy was against Ohio State last year in a game that Notre Dame should have won.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's defense is probably what surprised me the most. They're bringing back good players in the secondary. And I think the one guy that just because he plays safety, maybe not a lot of people know about him, but this guy's the best player on their team. His name is Xavier Watts. He wears number 0. He's one of their captains. This guy had 7 picks last year.
Wow.
7 picks, total ball hawk, 52 total tackles, 30 solo. He is going to be a difference maker for opposing offenses who, if their run game's not working, you just better throw it away to the side of the field that he is not playing on, because he is going to be a difference maker for this team. They are adding corner depth, which I think has always been a problem. I think receivers, breakout receivers, I'm interested to see who that's going to be for the Fighting Irish this year. When I'm looking at this on their depth chart right now, you already talked about Bo Collins. Who else did you talk about? Did you talk about Jaden Thomas?
I did not.
Okay. But Bo Collins, like you said, I think we talked about him in the Clemson preview. I was like, yeah, he's probably like the only guy who truly left that made a difference last year for them. But I'm interested to see who the guy is at the receiver position that kind of moves them up, because I feel like that's kind of been an underwhelming spot for the Fighting Irish over the past few years. So Notre Dame, I'll talk about their schedule real fast. And there's some people who are like, oh, well, you know, they should even if they go 12-0, like this schedule's so easy, you know. But guys, I mean, they do play 5 ACC teams. They play an SEC team, and they play 2 Big Ten teams. That's, what is that, 5, 6, 7? They're playing 8 Power 5 teams. So how good they are or not, hey, this stuff's made like way in advance. So to each their own. But I'm going to keep it short and sweet so we can – oh, no, I guess this is it. Now we have to talk about the editor's note after this. Anyways. We do have to talk about the editor's note. However, I'll talk about this just kind of short and sweet to the point. I think they take care of business of everything in between their first game and their last game. I think they're going to go –
I agree.
I think they're going 10-2. You pointed it out. And I was on the same page as you. That Georgia Tech game is sneaky.
Sneaky.
Having to travel to Atlanta, especially if they're, you know, keeping up with – if they keep winning ball games, that could be a top 25 matchup.
Yeah, it could.
But I will say this about Riley Leonard. If there's anybody that's going to prepare for Riley Leonard – better than any coach Notre Dame will face on their schedule this year, it is Mike Elko and Texas A&M. Anybody knows anything about Riley Leonard, it is his former head coach and Mike Elko. I think Texas A&M gets the job done, and then you get an easy 3-game stretch after that: Northern Illinois, at Purdue, and Miami, Ohio, I should say, rather, not Miami University in Florida. Louisville's a tricky spot. I'm interested to see how the Cardinals do this year, because nobody's really talking about them, but they had the number 1 portal class, and they did make the ACC title game last year. So I'm interested to see how that game goes. Get a bye week. Stanford, sorry, AD. Man, I don't think you get Notre Dame, but I did have you beating the Hokies this year. At Georgia Tech, like we said, a sneaky spot did get you getting the win. You play Navy. That should be an easy win for you. Bye week. You're going to destroy Florida State if they play anything like they did on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
You get the worst team in the ACC in Virginia. You get Army, should be an easy win. And I think it just comes down to Notre Dame knows that they're going to get a playoff spot regardless. And I think they could easily get into the playoff considering they play 8 power conference teams, even with 2 losses. So I do have them in my playoff. And I think this game, if the season plays out for USC as I'd like it to, for them to be 9-2 heading into this last game, and Notre Dame's 11-1, that would actually be really sick to see that every week. But if that were to play out the way I think it is, I think this game's just going to mean that much more to USC rather than it will to Notre Dame. I'm interested to see if Notre Dame they would be the team to do this. Like, let's say they are sitting at 11-1, they're about to play USC. Let's say USC does live up past expectations, and they just sit starters. Like, oh, we're going to be in the playoff.
They could.
They would be like the first team to truly do that. So I think that's all we got. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the first ever editor's note. Our boy, producer / editor Tyler Fromm. Oh, hey man, starting tight end for the Eagles on Saturday. Just letting you know, little brother of Jake Fromm, Tyler, I not mean to disrespect you like that. Tyler Vaughn, he is introducing the editor's note, which is pretty much just a little recruiting note for 4 of the top teams in the Big Ten. That's what this is. Tyler loves high school recruiting. He loves lower level classification football. So the editor's note for this one is going to be recruiting based. On down the road, maybe next episode, we'll hear about some D3 and D2 football. And hopefully we'll get his face on the TV, or not the TV, but the StreamYard, and he can tell you about it. He was unable to join us today, but
maybe a Center College Colonel football 2024 preview. I'd love to hear that. How his boys in Danville are going to do this year. I would love to hear that.
I'd love to hear that too. But this is the Big Ten Preview Editor's Note by Tyler Vaughn. It reads, Oregon had the best recruiting class in 2024 amongst the Big Ten, ranking 3rd in the country. Ohio State finished 5th, Penn State 15th, and Michigan 16th. Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith was a 5-star recruit out of Hollywood, Florida. He was the number 1 player in the country. Expect him to make an immediate impact at the X receiver position. We already talked about that. We are all very high on Jeremiah Smith and what he's going to be able to do this year.
Yep.
Penn State. Penn State has brought in some key transfers that will see immediate action. Right tackle Nolan, not going to pronounce that last name. Tackle Nolan, coming from Wisconsin, is probably going to start immediately, as well as A.J. Harris coming from the University of Georgia. And finally, Michigan. Nothing major when it comes to recruiting, seeing serious action for the Wolverines, but an impact player to watch is going to be Miles Hinton, who is a graduate student from Johns Creek, Georgia. He had 5 starts last year and is looking to be a full-time starter this year. And his brother, Christopher Hinton, was a defensive lineman for the Wolverines going undrafted in 2022. So there are a few fun facts on each team and their recruiting base from this past season. And that is the editor's note. So
the editor's note. Love it.
I think that'll conclude this one for us.
Yep.
Jake, close us out, brother.
All right. So as always, like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Give us a shout on X and Instagram. Let us know what kind of content you guys want to hear throughout the season, whether it's college football, NFL, MLB. You got the PGA Championship coming up this weekend at Eastlake. Tell us what you want to hear. We'll be back tomorrow with both of our playoff brackets. We'll be able to go through all those, show you who we got making it, maybe a dark horse to win it all. You'll hear all of our favorite futures for the college football season, our favorite dark horse Heisman candidates, and our week 1 preview. And boy, do we have some bangers to get the juices flowing. Week 1 of the 2024 college football season. We're here, everybody. So that's all we got for you today. Podcast 129, episode 4. We're out.